All right. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm living the dream. How about
Here.
you?
Same old, same old. We kind of been laxing on doing the Steve Jeltz Appreciation Society episodes, so we figured we'd kind of dive in and do a little update now that the baseball season's underway, and some big item news today. Speaking of baseball, what's going on here with the Oakland A's?
So we're gonna have to redo our little realignment chart because Oakland is they can no longer be one of your expansion teams since they're getting the or Las Vegas is getting the Oakland A's. Vegas can no longer be one of your expansion teams. Um, they said that they have purchased land to start building a stadium, and they're aiming to be there by opening day 2027.
Yeah, and it's not. I guess the land is not far off the Las Vegas Strip, from my understanding. Um, It's yeah. I mean, look, the Raiders moved there, the football Raiders, to Las Vegas not that long ago. They have a insane, high tech, high class, top of the line stadium. I can only imagine what this is going to look like out in Vegas. It's time. Vegas has been a long time growing area. You and I both thought that they would be an expansion city or a potential expansion city, but you're exactly right. You're basically taking one and moving it to another, in the same way that Montreal went to Washington and some other movements that have happened. Now, historically, though, this is kind of funny because these are the same athletics that started in Philadelphia.
Yeah, yeah. So it still fits into our Philly sports area of expertise here because they are a former Philadelphia team, just like the Golden State Warriors used to be the Philadelphia Warriors. Um,
Right.
and so, there's it's just a shame. Like Oakland went from being like one of the hubs of sports in the late 70s, early 80s to just nobody cares anymore. And their team, I mean, part of it is the Raiders left and came back and then left again. But the A's, for as long as I can remember, the A's have been a somewhat relevant, off and on relevant team. But over the past 10 years or so, they haven't. They've never really reached relevancy. And it's a shame because it's a team that you remember grow up like when we were growing up, the Bash Brothers, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco. You remember them in the famous San Francisco and Oakland World Series where there was the earthquake. You
Hmm.
know, there's so much Ricky Henderson playing for him and stealing all the bases. Raleigh Fingers, um, like all these players or Dennis Eckersley, not Raleigh Fingers. What the fuck am I thinking? Um,
No, Raleigh was on the A's as well.
Yeah, but I was thinking of Eck when I said that.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha.
just specifically because of the
Of our timeline, yeah.
right. Um, it's just been it's just a shame to see it go down like this. But the city of Oakland has made it plenty clear that they don't give a shit about their sports. They don't care about the teams. And quite frankly, it's time for the teams to move on. If cities don't want to do what it takes to keep the teams, then you know
Right. And
feel bad for the fans. But
it's yeah, and it's funny. I go back on the Oakland Athletics because one of their front office executives is very well known, Billy Bean, and has been in a position. He was their general manager from like '97 to the mid 2010s. I think 15 or 16. He ran that, and then he's some executive now. He's like a front office executive and a part owner. He is executive vice president of baseball operations, and he's a minority owner of the A's. So he's been a long time GM and executive manager, or executive vice president for the team. My thing is, it's really funny with him. You know, he kind of comes to fame with his, I can basically turn anybody into in the gold and make them a high caliber player and make get a lot out of these players that, maybe, this guy's got a little talent, but, not going to be much on anywhere else. And he just had a knack for it. Well, oddly enough, Billy Beane's Oakland Athletics, except for the 1 year that he was a player, have never won the World Series. The last World Series they won was 1989, and he happened to be on that team as a player. So as heralded as he is for, saving money and getting these players to outperform their expectations, you can't help to think that maybe that might be part of the problem. And you're really not throwing down, people want to see championships.
Right.
Winning baseball is great, but if you're not bringing trophies home, a fan base that's already dwindling is going to lose even more interest.
Right.
So,
and especially when your stadium is a sewer. Like their stadium routinely had sewage backing up into the locker rooms, into the clubhouses. There's been constant issues with that ballpark. It's not somewhere you want to spend money to take your family. So I 100% understand getting, them losing fans, losing attendance, all that stuff. It just sucks. I mean, and what Billy Beane was doing, I understood, because at the time he wasn't part of the ownership group. So he's trying to do what he can do with his limited funds, and it makes sense. But now that you're part of the ownership group, maybe you should be able to twist people's arms a little bit and go a little bit heavier on the pay scale instead of being being at the bottom of it. Play like a big market team.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. So, that wasn't, I always think about that. I never have any slight against him. I love Moneyball. Love reading the book. I thought the movie was pretty good. But, he just hasn't won anything, and it's not all on him.
Right.
But, it'll be interesting. So we'll have to retool and think about some of these potential cities. I know Nashville's still kind of the top of my list for an expansion. But who knows? Maybe someone else is going to move and take that one away.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. I mean, look, the Rays are the best team in baseball so far this year.
Yeah,
they're still playing in that shithole Tropicana field. So if they don't get something soon, I could see with the lack of, I mean, as well as they're playing, I know they're not packing that stadium.
No. Oh, no. And why would they? I've never been there, but everyone I've heard that's ever been there says the same thing. Yeah, it's awful.
It really is.
So speaking of baseball, we'll talk a little bit on our Phillies right now. Maybe the record's not the best. Look, they're 8-11. This is as of last night, and that last night being April 19th. They're currently down 5-0 tonight against the Rockies as we record this on April 20th. So maybe not the best record, but, there have been some things, obviously, that led to problems. Obviously, Harper's still not back. Hoskins going down right before the season started did not help. And then, Andrew Painter getting shut down. So you have a lot of things kind of thrown at you before the season even starts. But what I've loved seeing is you have Stott, Bohm, Marsh all performing at a high level offensively. Castellanos is hitting again, maybe not home runs, but he's hitting for a lot of extra bases, a lot of doubles. I don't know if he still leads the league, but he's close. He had 9, I think, on my last check in doubles. Sosa's been incredible. And obviously Trey Turner. I mean, he's Trey Turner. I don't think anyone expected him not to be, not a lot of power. Finally hit his first home run this week, but,
right.
Still hitting for average and still, playing good ball. And kind of going back to Brandon Marsh, there's an article that came out through Sports Illustrated a few days ago about his trade. And if you recall, Marsh came from the Angels last season in a deal that, sent a former number 1 overall pick back to the Angels and Mickey Moniak. And was that the Logan O'Hop deal as well?
I thought he came for Logan O'Hop and Mickey Moniak came for in the Syndergaard deal.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, Logan O'Hop. I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot they had made a couple different trades at the end of last year. Yeah. So that Marsh trade, man, on the surface there, that was looking, I know you were a big fan of Logan O'Hop, and both you and I kind of batted around like, well, where do you put him? Because JT's locked in for a while, and whatever. And then Marsh, comes through, and it's like, yeah, you know what, this guy might be something. And my goodness, he is just tearing the cover off the ball this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely. I didn't understand why we weren't going with him. Like I understand that the thought process behind pitching lefties versus righties and such, but I just kind of figured he was somebody we would plug and play. I never understood the trade for the dude from Oakland, Patchy or
Pache,
yeah, the dude sucks.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it from the jump because I feel like Marsh should just be an everyday center fielder,
Mhm.
and then you use, you call people up or you use other people, there's other ways to get around it. You've got players on the bench that can fill in center field when need be. I didn't like that trade with Oakland. I started seeing, and when I started thinking about Marsh as an everyday center fielder was during the playoffs last year because he really started to turn it on. It's like, there's plenty of players who they just need a change of scenery. And it really seems like he was one of them because he wasn't known as an offensive player out in LA. He was
No.
supposed to be a defensive player for us. He was supposed to be a defensive center fielder who could come in. He might give you a hit or two here and there, but by and large, his whole purpose to come here was defensively. And he showed that he's more than that. So it just
He
kind of blew my
reminds
mind.
me of the Rule 5 selections of Jason Worth and Shane Victorino.
Yeah.
I mean, really finding a diamond in the rough. Again, Logan O'Hop may turn out to be a fantastic, player in his own right. But for right now, Marsh has really overperformed his offensive expectations, and they may temper. They may come back to earth. But yeah, he was not expected to me hit like 220, maybe a 10, 12 home run guy, just to be that defensive stalwart. And man, he's well over 300, just really, really tearing it up. So it's exciting. Pitching wise, there's really have a lot of, quite honest, not a whole lot I like. Matt Strahm has been amazing. Jose Alvarado, really Nolan Wheeler, and you and I have talked about this many times over in our podcasts. Look, they were extended into the season last year with the playoffs and getting all the way to Game 6 of the World Series. You can't help but think, but that rust is really, really starting to rear its ugly head.
Yeah, and that was what we saw with Cole Hamels after 2008 was the next season. He came into the year, he was hurt. He started off, he didn't start his first game until it was after opening day. I feel like it was God, did he not make a start until May of that year? But I know he was struggling with some elbow issues
Mm-hmm.
in camp, and then he ended up having a late start to the season. And when he came back, he was just not what he was because of the fatigue. And you see that he was a young guy then. Nola's not a spring chicken, but he's not old. And Wheeler's getting up there, but he's not necessarily old. What is he, 32?
Let's see here.
Nola's like 28 or 29, and Wheeler's like 31 or 32.
Let's see. We'll do a quick search here. Nola is 29. He'll be 30 come June 4th. And he's been a top of the line pitcher for now. Wheeler's 32. He'll be 33 here at the end of May. So
Right.
Yeah.
So
Wheeler has a known history of some injuries too. So it's not like, he it's not like he hasn't been down the thing before. He had Tommy John. I think in 2015. And then he was just limited for several years there, and then He actually missed part of the 2020 season, which is crazy because that was a short season for us. Because it was the end of the 19 season. He signed that deal with us. So he's basically on year 4 of that. Yeah, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, 4. So, yeah, look, he's been top notch. He's been quality. I'm hoping he kind of figures it out. He seems to be, in my head, a little more ahead of where Noel's at. Taiwan Walker's finally started. He started slow. He's coming back around. But, yeah, I have to go back to Matt Strum. He struck out 11 tonight, just career high, in 5 1/3 innings. That dude is just on it. Throwing strike thrower. Love seeing it. So glad he's got the opportunity. So if there's anything that's positive coming out of Andrew Painter being shut down, it's the fact that they were able to put Matt Strom in there and really lock it down because – quite honestly, if not for him, I'm not sure that the Phillies would be at 8 wins right now. They might be at 5
right.
or 6, so
yeah. At this point, I'm just hoping that they can get Nola to get his stuff together. He's not negotiating with the team at this point for his long-term deal. So at this point, get his stuff together, get him pitching well, trade him at the deadline, and let's get some pitching process, something for him because I have a feeling he's not sticking around after this year.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on the money about that one. And the only other thing I've noticed too, and curious to see your thoughts on this. I don't know how much you've watched or seen clips or anything, but Craig Kimbrell, if I can speak tonight, has the really wacky, looks like a bird, kind of very menacing. The way his pitching stance before he gets into the windup.
Menacing bird.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He looks weird. He's supposed to look scary. Right, I don't know. Has that imposing thing. Well, go back and watch any time that he does that prior to this season and look how long it takes. And because of this pitch clock, it shortens how he's getting set. I'm not saying that he was at the top of his game last year or even the year before that. He's kind of certainly coming toward the twilight of his career here. So no one expects him to be, the Craig Kimbrell that everyone knows as far as the number wise. That being said, I mean, the guy's pushing toward a 6 ERA. It's just, I don't know, $10 million for a guy that's being outperformed by Andrew Vasquez, who was basically a throwaway from the Giants. It's I don't know.
There's some issue, and I think that's a lot of the pitching staff. I think that the pitch clock is actually to blame for. I won't say I'm not gonna say all of it, but I think that there is quite a bit of difficulty that the pitch clock has introduced for our pitching staff. Just the way that I think a lot of them feel rushed, and I think as they kind of get used to it, hopefully they'll start calming down, and it'll kind of just become they can kind of get their rhythm back with it. But I really do feel like that's a bit of a problem for our pitching staff so far.
Yeah. Still real quick, Sixers are up 2-0 on the Nets. They are currently playing tonight. Close game, just separated by a few points. So, I don't know. It's the one unfortunate thing about the NBA is that, it's almost a given who's going to reach the championship.
Right.
And it sucks. It's not like watching football where it's just a one game off. Hey, someone wins on a fluke play and the favorite is immediately out. Or like watching the NCAA basketball tournament even. You have these fluke teams that come through and they win by 1 point on a last second shot. And they're not supposed to win anything. It's what happened all this tournament. Or even like baseball. Teams just get hot. Basketball is weird because you have these long series. The playoffs seem to last forever. And, it's like a given. It's like, oh, the Sixers will get past the Nets, but then they've got to go through the Celtics and whoever else. And it's like, yeah, everyone I've seen, talked to, read, they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it's like, why even bother watching?
I mean, it very well could. This could be a year when they get hot and and shock the world, so to speak. And if they're going to do it, if James Harden is going to win a championship for the rest of his career without joining the Celtics or the Lakers or somebody like that, it's going to be this year because this is going to be the last year he's in Philly. His contract's up. He's already talking about wanting to be in Houston again. So, and quite frankly, let him go back to Houston because he doesn't deserve the contract he's got. Let him go back to Houston. The Sixers will retool, but it would just be a shame if Embiid doesn't get a championship because especially this year, he's so dominant. Like it's been unreal. So
Oh
I
yeah,
would really love to
MVP
see.
season. Yeah, he's my MVP. Just dominant performance, league's leading scorer. Once again, yeah, and just the way he draws fouls, man. He takes a beating, and yeah, I mean, gets himself to the line. He can shoot. I think
Yeah.
the Sixers either led the league or very close to the league in overall free throw shooting percentage. So,
Right.
yeah, there's something to be said. I mean, hey, you might not be wrong. I just NBA is a different creature. I've never been a huge fan of it. I've made that comment, and you have as well on here. And a lot of it goes to the fact of, well, it's kind of, I'd say predetermined, but we all kind of know,
Yeah.
you know. On the other side of the coin, I'll let you speak your piece on this one. But the NHL playoffs have started, and thankfully the Flyers have never mind. Well, I'll let you say that one.
All right. I'm gonna try and keep this short. Mostly because I don't want to end up in the hospital with a heart attack. Dude, the you know what? I'm not even going to get that worked up over it because they're not a good team. They're not a good organization at this point. There's nothing to like about the Flyers. And I've never in my life said that. And it pisses me off because we're watching this ownership group run this team into the ground. They are the only hope at this point is that number one, they end up hiring a GM from outside the organization. Look, Danny Briere may very well be the next great GM in the NHL. I am at the point where I am so sick and tired of seeing former players come in and former executives and whatever and just keep things the same. The status quo cannot stay. It can't stand it. It needs to change. Everything needs to change. The culture, everything needs to change. It's been on a downward spiral since the Stanley Cup Finals in 2010. It needs everything needs to change. Tortorella, I don't like him, but I feel like he didn't do anything to lose his job this year besides alienating your best player. I mean, he made enemies of players, which is not exactly a great thing for a coach to do, especially when you're trying to rebuild. But he held players accountable. So I'm torn on that. I've been on record as saying that if John Tortorella is coaching Team USA, I'm rooting for Team Canada. So you know, I just it's hard for me to say even to keep him. I want the whole thing torn down to the bricks. Tear down the First Union Center or Wachovia Center. Rebuild that and rebuild the team along with it. Let the Phantoms come on. Just call the Flyers the Phantoms for the next year. Let the Phantoms team play in the NHL and do like they do in soccer over in England, where if you suck bad enough, you get sent down to the minor. Your whole team gets sent down to the minors, and another team comes up. Do that shit at this point, because what you were putting on the ice this year was goddamn atrocious. Carter Hart is your only player. You had some other young players that stepped up and played. That's true too. But I mean, like the only guy that's a constant that you knew coming in this year, because look, Sean Couturier, your best player since the deal you had with Claude Giroux got thrown away, which the deal was, and it wasn't disclosed until after he signed with Ottawa. The deal was this: the Flyers traded Claude Giroux last year at the deadline.
Right.
They traded him to the Florida Panthers. They got Owen Tippett, and I forget what else. But the deal was that the Flyers, when he became a free agent, the Flyers were going to re-sign him this year. That was the deal that they had. Handshake deal out the door. He wanted to finish his career as a Flyer. Well, Chuck Fletcher, being the piece of shit he is, the former GM, reneged on that and chose to re-sign fucking Rasmus Ristolainen, signed Tony DeAngelo, who's a piece of shit and wants out, and just signed people that it didn't make any goddamn sense. And so they a person who was a pillar of this team, and I realize I'm a little bit, walking back my comment here, saying I want to tear it down from and start over if I wanted to keep Giroux. But Claude Giroux should have been a Flyer this offseason.
Right.
Should have happened. Then you've got him. You've got Kevin Hayes. Nobody could have seen Sean Couturier being out all season again. Nobody saw that happening. Cam Atkinson gets hurt. He's out all season. You would have had players that could have propped the team up a little bit, and maybe that would have done more harm than good. Who knows? As it stands, the Flyers are a lottery team. They've got a 6.7% chance of getting the first pick, which is going to be Connor Bedard. God, if you're there and listening, let the Flyers get the first pick. I will, I don't know, man. I'll do some cool stuff for you. You let that happen, please. Because that's really the only way the Flyers are turning it around anytime soon is if they reach a Pittsburgh Penguins-like stroke of luck where they end up with multiple number one picks in back-to-back years, where the Penguins got Evgeny Malkin and got Sidney Crosby, and then we're able to build their team around them. That's the kind of luck that the Flyers need at this point. And I'm going to say this too. I'm going to say something else that I never thought I'd say. I used to give Penguins fans a rash of shit for their team almost getting moved because they weren't showing up to games when they were terrible. If I would have known then how bad the Flyers would have been now, I couldn't stomach paying money to go see this fucking current team. It would be cool to go take Peyton to go see it because he's never, he wants to see a Flyers game live. But I'm not going to pay money to go see them play in Tampa because I don't want to be in a Tampa stadium watching Tampa fans celebrate while the Flyers are getting their asses kicked.
Right.
And I'm not going to, we don't live close enough to Philly for me to take them to a game in Philly and watch them get their asses kicked there. So, so I apologize to any Pittsburgh Penguins fans that I talked shit on when they were terrible, because if I was in your situation, I'd have done the same damn thing.
No, and that's why I wanted to kind of let you just go on that because, I know it's just been a rough season and not really a whole lot to look forward to. So maybe it will work out. Maybe the number one draft pick will just fall in their hands. But who knows?
If
and I think
I'm buying a lottery ticket that day.
But speaking of draft, we'll do a quick little bit here, but I think maybe this can lead into our next Steve Jeltz here is after this happens, the NFL draft. And the Philadelphia Eagles are in a really interesting position here because of multiple first-round picks, and through trades and such that had occurred previously, and there's been a lot of rumor, speculation of trading around and and what have you there. But you threw out an interesting comment today that Howie may have made. I don't know. This is something that I was certainly hopeful for myself. You and I have talked about it. I've actually had this conversation with Danielle. Bijan Robinson, if he's available.
So this is the best thing that I've seen is basically how he said that he he basically said that he's going to take the best player in the draft, whoever's available. And I'm trying to find the exact quote because I can't remember what it was, but there's another thing that just came up that I'm just seeing now, and it says that Bijan Robinson only visited with two players, or two teams rather.
Right.
He visited with the Buccaneers and he visited with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I knew about the Eagles visit.
He said, oh God, I can't find it now. It's killing me. But what I would say is I understand that we just took or that we just I understand that we just worked out a deal and we're supposed to be keeping Darius Slay. I think with the signing of Matt Patricia as a defensive assistant, I don't buy that they talked to him, that they talked to Slay before they signed him. Or if they did, I believe they said, hey, listen, we're going to sign Matt Patricia. And I don't think it was really a discussion. And so I could see some way, somehow, we end up trading Slay at the draft.
And that's possible. I mean, it was looking on, it was almost a surprise. It was the Phillies signing Cliff Lee in the offseason many years ago, the Christmas present. So the Slay signing was the same thing to me. It was like, wow, I can't believe it. So you might be right. And look, they just made Jalen Hurts the richest man in football. With some nice cap room up to and through 26. Beyond that, it's not pretty.
But that's where they'll restructure and
of course, then that's what
right into bonus money and all that.
Yeah. So, but the way it's structured, though, if you look at it right now on paper, to me, and obviously you're coming from the NFC champions team that just barely lost the Super Bowl. You're still in win now mode. So, you have your chips on the table for this year, 24, maybe 25. Beyond that, it might get a little dicey if there's not, restructuring done or whatever. But no, I completely agree. I think that's exactly what's going to happen too. No, for now, I think the draft is next week?
Next week. We're 7 days away.
It's in Kansas City. We're going to hit on that a lot harder. I think after that happens, we'll kind of do a rundown of the Eagles draft picks, what happens, if there's any trades, if there's any current roster players that are gone, if there's anyone drafted that say, you know what, hey, maybe this guy's spot's not safe. So maybe he's traded before the season begins. Maybe we can speculate on certain. And I think we can kind of hunt and peck too on other teams just to say, hey, you know what, this team made out really well, or why in the world did this team do this? And then we can always poke fun at the Jets.
Yeah. Well, two things that I want to mention before we wrap this one up, both regarding the Eagles. One of them regarding Bijan Robinson. During his pitch to Howie Roseman before the draft, Howie asked him why the Eagles should draft him. And he said, you're not going to get a running back. You're going to get a difference maker. And that's That's a hell of a statement.
Yes, it
I
is.
like it. And it's what dude, honestly, this is why that is why I want him in this offense. Is I feel like put him in this offense. Who are you going to stop? Are you going to stop are you going to stop Smith? Devontae Smith? Are you going to stop AJ Brown? Are you going to stop Dallas Goedert? Are you going to stop Bijan Robinson? Are you going to stop Kenneth Gainwell? Or are you going to stop Jalen Hurts? Because you've got so many options there. And there is talk of them going, and I don't think they'll do this. I don't think they'll go in probably not in the first or second round, but in the later rounds. There's talks of them looking at some of the higher end tight ends in the draft. And they've already got, you've got Dallas Goedert. You've got Grant Calcaterra, who I think they didn't utilize to the fullest of his potential last year. And you've got Jack Stoll. Jack Stoll's more of a blocking.
He's a blocker, yeah.
But he can catch too. So you've already got multiple weapons. And then hell, they could still add another wide receiver. They added the dude from Atlanta recently. But they could still add another wide receiver to this team. And then you've got Quez. And if Quez can figure out his issues, he's one of the most dynamic deep threats in the game if they can just get him to catch the ball and hold on to the ball.
Exactly.
So there's, you have so much in this offense you have to account for from a defensive standpoint. Now, the second thing that I want to address is one Mr. Budda Baker, who is an all-pro safety from the Cardinals, who has expressed interest in joining the Philadelphia Eagles after demanding a trade out of Arizona there, where he had a very, very awkward first meeting with Jonathan Gannon, their new head coach, who, good God, did he look like the whitest man on earth when he went up to Did you see that video?
Yes, I did.
Dude, how fucking I felt embarrassed for him.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that happen. I have a feeling he will be an Eagle. Whether that's, I can't see them trading a first round pick for him though. I think maybe a second or third round pick. Because
lower pick this year, and then maybe a future pick, or maybe a pick and a player,
Right, but nothing higher than a second, because the safety position has become so devalued. It's almost like running back, and it's Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are the only two running backs I could really see going in the first round, and I'd be happy with Jahmyr Gibbs at 30. If we took him at 10, I'd be pissed. But if we don't get Robinson at 10 and we get Gibbs at 30, I would be okay with that. I still think it's probably a little bit of a reach, but he's not going to be there by the time we draft in the second round. Howie won't trade a first round pick for Budda Baker. And I think the Cardinals know they're not getting any better than maybe a second, but more than likely a third. So hopefully they just, they do the deal, we get them. And that would go a long way to solidifying the backfield, our defensive backfield. Because then you've got Slay, Bradbury, and him, Baker. And then you've got either, because they're not really interchangeable, but you could probably make a case for putting Terrell Edmonds or Reed Blankenship at the other safety position with Budda Baker on the field. So it just depends on how things play out. And then that solidifies our backfield. And the only thing we really are lacking at that point is linebackers. We've got Nakobe Dean in the middle, which is great. I'm happy to have him there. You've got Morrow from the Bills, who could go either way, but and then you've got Hassan Reddick, who's that edge and outside linebacker combo. So your defense looks infinitely better with Budda Baker back there than it does without him. So
right.
I'm hoping they figure out a way to make that happen.
And that'll be our kind of our tease out for our next episode. We're going to hit the NFL draft hard, obviously specifically for the Eagles. You know, we try to hit. We're a Philly sports podcast, but we try to hit all sports. And look, we do talk about other teams and what they do too. Just on the sheer fact that, hey, guess what? The Eagles have to play them at some point.
Right.
You have to talk about your rivals. You have to see what happens. I'm curious. Hey, as much as I hate to say it, I am curious to see what happens with the Commanders and the Giants and the Cowboys. I don't. It's not like I can't be dismissive of it. I also want to see what the Chiefs do. Look, what are your Super Bowl champions going to do to try to repeat? Are they on the road for that dynasty build? Because it sure looks like it to me. So I don't know. I'm curious. We'll dive in hard on the NFL draft, specifically what the Eagles do. But do you have any last minute words before we wrap this one up?
Fuck Dallas.